PEM CPD committee members, secretariat staff, and also Garis Pitzer, who is providing the technical support for this CPD online program. Welcome to this virtual session of PEM CPD Unlimited. 2 years ago, in November 2019, we had our first CPD Unlimited for the first time. I was invited by architect Wan Sofia, the coordinator for the CPD Unlimited 2019 program, to present a paper. Regret that I have to decline the invitation because it clashes with my another program, the ninth annual development conference in Singapore, where I was invited to present a paper together with our Minister of Housing and Local Government, YB Zuraida Kamarudin. I was informed by architect Wan Sofia that the session in KL was well attended and there were minor issues on car parking space and room availability when we did the physical session 2 years ago. Time allocated for speakers were too short. Some couldn't finish the session before the following session starts in the same room. So initially, Architect Abu Zarim, the CPD chairman, planned to have physical CPD Unlimited program on 15 December last year. But due to the pandemic, then we have to postpone to 9th of January 2021. But again, the MCO was also extended several times, affecting our schedule. Finally, we have decided to have this session online. So today, this session will be conducted fully online due to COVID-19 pandemic and the SOP that we have to comply with. I hope this virtual session eliminates the problem that we had before. No more car parking problem, no more room availability problem. But please be prepared and tolerate with us. With this virtual session, speakers are everywhere. They are at home, in their office, and some are at PEM Center. So we are running multiple sessions concurrently. It is stretching the internet bandwidth that we have. But we have our technical team on standby. So we are implementing this virtual CPD Unlimited for the first time. There are many things that we will learn from this session. Speaking on learning, I hope participants will learn new things from this program today. Under this pandemic and economic challenges, it is like racing. Every day we have to learn and get the new knowledge. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. We are happy to have our speakers willing to share their knowledge and new technologies with us today. I am glad that we have Architect Razin Mahmud. He will be sharing his journey, small team with big dream. And we also have Dato Architect Saiful Anwar Aziz. He will be sharing his experience as a sole proprietor exporting services overseas. And of course, our special guest, Dato Sri Engineer Zaini Ujang from Ministry of Environment and Water. He will be talking about eco-shift in built environment. We also have Taufik Nazaruddin, Nohayati Ahmad, speaking about digital solution and Internet of Things. We also have Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Tamizi from UMP Holding. He'll be speaking on BIM organization transformation. And we have Architect Gary Wong also talking about BIM today. And other than that, we have many more speakers on various topics. On fire safety design, we have Architect Chong Lee Seong, Engineer Hao Jiang Te. On construction contract related subjects, we have Architect Joseph Tan, Architect Lu Chi Kiong. We also have David Yek. We'll be talking about mediation and dispute resolution. We also have the topics on conservation by Mariana Issa, Mangjit Kaul, Architect Rida Razak, and Ahmad Najib Arifin, and also on urban design by Associate Professor Dr. Sharifah Salwa. I will not be able to say all to mention all the names, but there are many more speakers. You can check with the program. And later in my session, I will also share the finding from our survey from the government agencies, developers, contractors, and individual project owners on what do they expect from architects in providing architecture services. Recently, we have conducted a survey to get the feedback from developers, contractors, and also government agency on their expectation on architects' services. And on behalf of PAM, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here virtually today. This is our first ever virtual CPD Unlimited program. Please give us feedback at the end of the session so that we will improve things in the future. I hope that all participants will enjoy this session and have a good interaction with the speakers. Make sure you interact with the speaker. Don't just leave your computer on, but you are not there. So enjoy the session. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Architect
Oh. Hi, Mr. Jeremy.
Hi, Jerry. You
Hi.
call me Jerry.
Jeremiah, you may start now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can call me Jerry.
Jeremy, okay. Hi, Jeremy. Can you? You can start now.
Okay. Let me just share the slides.
Yes.
Participants are there. There are about 7. Is there? I'll just share the slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to wait for anyone else?
Yes. You just wait for a while. Then we will give you the cue.
Okay. We'll wait for a few minutes.
Okay. All right. Hi, Mr. Jeremy. You can start now.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Sorry. Thank you.
Your name again?
Yes, Jeremy.
Your name. What's your name again?
Lin, Lin.
Lynn. Oh, Lynn.
Yeah, hi.
I can't see your face, so I'm wondering who is that. Because
I'm
I
so
see another person here, Lynn, as well. Oh. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Jeremiah Gurusamy, Jerry. So I'm actually a practicing lawyer. Unlike most of y'all, I'm not an architect. So I've been invited to cover the topic, which is actually quite an interesting topic due to the changes of the law, the introduction of Section 17A of the MACC Act. So this has impact a lot of partnerships and companies. So it also affects architects. Now, previously, what used to happen is if an individual commits corruption or bribery, that individual will get into trouble. So as an individual, the provisions were, even if the individual was acting for a company, or if the individual was actually carrying out instructions of his bosses, the individual will be the scapegoat. Now, with the changes to the law, with the introduction of Section 17A, there will be exposure to the company itself and the partnership itself. All right. So this new Section 17A, as you look at the title, it says new corporate liability. So the actions of your employees, it can be your clerical staff, your draftsmen, it can be any support staff, any junior architect can actually cause liability to your partnership or your company. Now, once the company or the partnership, which we call the commercial organization, is liable, there is automatic deeming provision that kicks in, where the directors and managers, okay, all those that play a manager role, would be also personally liable for the same offense. Okay, so that's why there's been a lot of interest in this area because of the implication of this new section 17A. So there is liability to your organization, there is personal liability to the bosses. All right, so that's the introduction. Let's look at the law itself. I'm just going to very quickly highlight how this section works, how does it apply, and what you need to do to have a defense. Before I start, just a little bit of the firm. So we are Co-Dipendra Jeremiah Law, KDJ Law for short. So we are based in Damansara Heights, not too far away from your office. So we do a number of areas. We are a full service firm. So we've got banking and finance. We do a lot of loans for property developers, for sub-sales as well, for end financiers. We've got a corporate commercial department. We do quite a bit of joint ventures as well. Then we've got our litigation team, dispute resolution, arbitration, employment as well, employment, IR, HR, and also real estate and property transactions. So we do a lot of property transactions, real estate work as well, either joint ventures plus also sub-sales, loans to developers and the like. Okay, so I've actually summarized the slides so that it's easy to understand. Okay, so what we'll be looking at today is the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2009, which has been recently amended to introduce a new provision, Section 17A, which has come into force just last June. Now, the important part that you will need to note is the term gratification, which is defined under Section 3. Now, gratification here really is wide enough to cover any acts. So it can involve the giving of money, donation, gifts, loan, fees, rewards, even hiring someone without following proper procedures as a favor to someone else can amount to gratification. Discount rebates that are not approved, they are not transparent, can also amount to. Now, the key thing here is it has to be corrupt gratification. So even though the definition of gratification is wide, if there's an element of corruption, then you will fall under the provisions of Section or the provisions under the MACC Act. So bear in mind, the word gratification is very wide, but to be liable under the Act, it has to be given or received corruptly. Okay. Now, to make the sessions interactive, Lynn, if the participants have any questions, they can actually use the chat, or they can. Are they allowed to unmute and ask questions? Lynn, are you there? Okay, if you have any questions, you can just use the chat group, and I will try and get Lynn to assist with the questions. Okay, no questions yet. Okay, let's continue. Now, before we look at the new provision of Section 17A, it's important to note that SPRF, MACC, they actually go after individuals who commit bribery or corruption using Section 16 to 23. So if you look at Section 16 to 23, it talks about offenses to individuals. So these sections are still in existence. If you give or receive gratification, either yourself or through an agent, if you corruptly procure a tender to be withdrawn, so that's bid rigging. You say, look, this time you go ahead and secure it. I will at the last minute withdraw by tender so that you will be successful. So these are various ways of committing bribery and corruption. So this section 16 to 23, bribery of officers of public bodies, for example, these are sections that will apply to individuals, all right? However, these sections do not apply to the company. So one of the criticisms is you are not able to go after the person who gave the instructions. You're not able to go after the company who is actually the directing mind and will, or the directors or even the management. So they've introduced section 17A. This was introduced actually pursuant to this amendment in 2018. Yeah? So in a nutshell, what section 17 capital A states, it introduces corporate liability. It criminalizes companies' corrupt acts. So any actions done by your employee or any actions done by your service provider. So it's very wide. Your business partners, your consultants, your agents, your vendor, your suppliers, provided that action is done, that corruption, bribery is done to secure an advantage for the company or the partnerships. So that means your architecture firm must derive a benefit, all right, an advantage. Then section 17A will apply. So if you read 17A, it says the commercial organization. Now we understand commercial organization from the definition to include companies and partnerships. So some of your architecture firms, you all are partnerships, some of you all are Senian Berhats. So the commercial organization may be found to have committed an offense if any person associated. So person associated includes the directors, even your employees and service providers are defined as persons associated. If that person gives promises or offers gratification, and there must be this important link that there is a business advantage to the architecture firm. So as long as your employee or service provider either gives or offers the bribe or promises the bribe. Now, even if he has not actually given the bribe, but he merely made a promise or offered the bribe, the elements are made up. Okay, so if he told someone, I will give you this amount if you let us secure this contract, or I'll give you this amount if you give us the approval, you know, some government council, municipal council, or town council. And there's obviously a link to your architecture firm because it is to complete the project. The elements of 17A would be made up. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, it has already come to force after a 2-year grace period. The section has come into force on 1st June. Okay, so we are about 8 months into this provision, this new 17A. All right, now, before I go into the actual wording of the section and explain how it impacts architecture firms, and then to explain what you need to do as a defense, are there any questions? We've got Ong King Lu, Ipin Oi. Any questions? I'd rather this session be interactive. Otherwise.
Morning, Jerry.
Morning.
Almas here.
Hi, Almas. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for coming.
No worries. Happy to conduct
I
this
posted a question actually because when you mentioned commercial organization refers to companies and partnerships, how does it affect sole proprietorships? Because a very high percentage of architectural firms are sole props.
Okay, sole props are already caught under the existing law, section 16 to 23. Because when you are a sole prop, you are already an individual. So you are naturally caught under section 16 to 23. Okay, so here they are trying to extend the liability to the company itself or the partnership itself. So that's why they've introduced 17A. But if you are a sole prop, you already have personal liability. You can't separate the business entity from the individual in the context of a sole prop. And anyone working for you really is assisting you. So in a situation of sole prop, SPRM, again, if you are the one committing the offense, SPRM may go after you, or they may say that you are doing it through an agent, which in that context also falls under section 16 to 23. So sole prop, you're already caught under the existing provisions. This new provision 17A now covers a wider ambit. It also covers partnerships and companies. Almas, is that?
Yes, I understand.
So they now, SPRM actually has more ammunition in the sense they can go after sole props. They can also go after partnerships and companies as well. So their logic is, under a situation of partnership and company, there are many people involved, but they could be merely taking instructions from the bosses. And so now they say, look, if you don't regulate your own employees, you don't regulate your service providers as well. It's even worse because you're looking at third parties, consultants, agents, vendors, suppliers, even another company, a subsidiary or joint venture company that provides services, is a service provided to the architecture firm. They would fall under the definition of persons associated. So if the person associated, either the employer or service provider commits the offense but this is important, for the benefit of the architecture firm, then there is liability under 17A. Okay, so if we look at the wordings of the section, it talks about a commercial organization commits an offense if a person associated with the commercial organization. So two key things we must know. Who is the commercial organization? I think we already know. It covers companies and partnerships. Second question we need to understand is, who are these persons associated? We also know it actually is defined as directors of the company, partners of the partnership, employees. So anyone working for either the company or the partnership within the organization can commit the offense and the company or partnership gets into trouble. Now, worse still, the last category, persons who perform services. This is the tricky one because how do you regulate third parties that do services for you? So that's the tricky part. Unfortunately, the ambit is so wide, you not only need to educate all the employees in your architecture firm, you have to actually educate and strengthen your defense when you cover third parties that provide services to you. So going back to the section, you will note as long as there is corrupt gratification, so he corruptly gives, or he hasn't given, he merely agrees to give, or promises or offers to give gratification. So the key thing is corrupt gratification. Okay, whether for benefit of that person, another person. Now the important link is this: it must be to obtain or retain business for the commercial organization, or to obtain or retain an advantage in the conduct of the business. So if you look at the context of architecture firms, it could be between two private entities and you are trying to secure the job. So the customer says, look, someone working for the customer and one of your employees or one of your brokers or agents or third parties, they have some agreement and there is a bribe given. So in the old days, the person giving or receiving the bribe are individually liable. Now with section 17A, if there's an advantage to the architecture firm, meaning it's to secure some new projects, secure more work, more revenue, more profits for the architecture firm, then the link is made out, and yes, there will be 17A liability. Later, I'll talk about the defense and what you need to do. So really, even if the bribe has not been given, there's an agreement or promise or offer, good enough. Now, another situation I can think for architecture firms is sometimes you all need approvals from municipal councils, you need approvals from other authorities, government bodies, development orders. Now, even in those circumstances, if a bribe is offered, that would fall under corrupt gratification, and the architecture firm again would be exposed under 17A. Now, there may be other scenarios which later during Q&A we can discuss, and then maybe we can just run through what we need to do to safeguard architecture firms. Okay. Almas, any questions on your side?
Yes. When you say the corrupt action, to retain business or agrees to give, promise, or offer, does that refer to when there's a discussion for a discount on the fees for the project, or is it only for a situation where the rewards or the corrupt money or whatever is exchanged between individuals and doesn't benefit the company?
Okay, so to answer your question, now nothing wrong giving discounts, rebates, because end of the day, we have to look at it from a few angles. Was this discount approved? Was it properly recorded? Was it transparent? Or does it take the form of an under-the-table payment? Okay. Now, let's assume willing buyer, willing seller in the sense, especially in Malaysia, everyone wants a discount. Okay. So if the discount is asked and it is properly given, meaning you have reduced the price, it is documented, it appears in the invoice, in the receipt, and so that is fine. Now, I'm not going to go into the issue of scale fees and all that, because there's a reason you all have the scale fees lah. All right. So from my CC's perspective, if it's under legislation, it is approved, then it is not anti-competitive. But leaving that aside, I know sometimes architects may go beyond your scale fee and give further discount, but that's a separate discussion, that's a separate issue. PAM, Board of Architects, that's an issue within the industry to regulate. How do we ensure everyone sticks to the scale fee? But that's a separate issue. The issue at hand is, are you allowed to give discounts? Yes, it is within the ambit, within your scale fees, and it is properly recorded, it is transparent, nothing wrong. Willing buyer, willing seller, you can decide the pricing of your services. However, if there is some form of kickback, some form of gratification payment, some form of facilitation payment, grease payment, duit kopi, something under the table, under the counter, then yes, that would have the element of corrupt gratification. So in those kind of situations, there would be Section 17A liability. Almas, what was your other part to the question?
Okay.
Answer the question?
Yes, you have.
All right, so as long as it's officially done, recorded above board, no issue. It takes the element of something illegal, a bribe, or it doesn't even need to be exchange of money. The bribery can be, you do this for me, I do that for you. You approve this, next time I do something, So if it's not proper, it has the element of corruption, corrupt gratification, then it will fall under 17A. Okay.
Okay.
We'll look at some examples later as well. Any questions from the others? Almas, anything in the chat group?
Good morning, Jeremiah. A question
Morning.
on.
Your name, please.
I'm in the profile is Ping Wee, but it's David.
David. Hi.
Yeah. Through my understanding, like you mentioned, there are other forms of bribes as well. Some networking events, when people come together, there are various parts of communication on how people can collaborate and whatnot. Sometimes it turns into forms of a friendship. And how is this defined in this context of your presentation? Like, awarding to friends, awarding to associates. The benefits to the individual or the company is not so direct. It's actually quite blurred. Sometimes, you just go out and hang out and have a meal. And this kind of relationship, is this considered under the Act as something that is corrupt?
Okay, good question, David. So if you look at the definition, which earlier I pointed out, the definition of gratification is very wide. So, but it only becomes an offense if it's corruptly given. So common times the question asked is, we meet with customers, with our business partners, service providers, and eventually we become friends. So sometimes we take them out, we belanja makan and all that. So the question is, would that be perceived as corrupt gratification? Would that be perceived as a form of bribery? Now the question has to be based on the quantum spent and the circumstances. So let me give you a few examples. Let's say you have a meeting. After the meeting, you just go across to a restaurant, a mama shop, or some nice Chinese restaurant, and you want to have a meal. Nothing wrong. Now, if you say, I'm going to, you do this, you secure this for me, I'm going to, on the side, give you something, or we will sponsor your whole family to an overseas holiday or to an expensive spa, then that would amount to bribery corruption. So it is very subjective. You must look at the circumstances. It is good to come out for your architecture firm certain guidelines, certain policies, and have certain thresholds. So no receiving gifts above 300 ringgit if individual, or 500 ringgit, or 1,000 ringgit, depending on the circumstances, without management approval. Now, if you send a hamper, say for Chinese New Year, it very common practice in Malaysia. Again, the question is, should we send hampers? Should we receive hampers? Now, SPRM will again look at the facts. It was given for festivity, for a festival. They will look at the circumstances. What was the value of the hamper? Now, change that facts a bit and say a Rolex watch was given to sent to the home of the other party. So then that will already will raise flags because of the cost and the circumstances. But if you send a hamper, chances are the hamper, maybe when you receive a hamper, the architecture firm will say, okay, we'll divide it among all our staff. Some companies, GLCs, are very strict. They have a no gift policy, in which case they will say, sorry, we cannot accept any form of gifts, even hampers we will not accept. If you give it to us, we will donate it to a charity. Okay, and we will tell them it came from you. Some companies are a bit more flexible. They feel, look, we told them not to give it, but if they do give it to us, we will divide it among all our staff. So, okay, but so contrast that to lavish gifts sent to the home and all that. So that will have a higher risk of it amounting to corrupt gratification. So it is subjective. Some companies have got, as I mentioned, policies on what are the thresholds. if management allows, or even if it falls below the threshold of whatever threshold you set, 300, 500,000, you should then have a gift register to record who gave this, what was the purpose, who was the recipient, was it divided among all the staff, or was it donated? So you can have a gift register if it is accepted by the company. Now, when it comes to giving gifts and all that, you should always use your discretion, look at the circumstances to avoid it appearing as corrupt gratification. So taking someone for a meal after a meeting, not an issue. If it's a very expensive entertainment outlet, karaoke, and any other things happen, then of course the elements of corrupt gratification. So again, you have to look at the facts. David, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Clear? Is it clear?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, we'll look at other examples later. So you see, even though the definition of gratification is very wide, anything and everything can potentially amount to gratification, whether it is above board or corruptly given. Is it properly documented, or you are trying to hide it? So that's the element of then. So they look at the intention and the circumstances in deciding. So that's what SPRM will do when they investigate. And they interview and interrogate people. They are trying to get the circumstances surrounding. Okay, now, so this is the main offense, 17A sub 1. You know the elements, either companies or partnerships, employees, directors, partners, or even service providers are person associated who commit the gratification. And even if you are not given, but you promise to give, the important thing is there is a link, a benefit, an advantage to the architecture firm, then the elements are made up. So we know who is commercial organization, companies, partnership. Now I forgot to mention just now, it is extraterritorial, meaning if your architecture firm is involved in a project overseas, say in Indonesia, and either your employee or your agent gives a bribe to secure the project or to get approvals, 17A applies because it's extraterritorial. Because you are a Malaysian entity committing bribe overseas, you are caught. Likewise, a foreign architecture firm that you work with that does business in Malaysia commits bribery in Malaysia, that foreign architecture firm is caught as well. Whether they take the form of a company or partnership or limited liability partnership or conventional partnership, they are caught. Now, persons associated is the actual individual that commits the act of corruption. All right. And we know it's directors, partners, all your employees, and all your service providers. Service providers can be companies, can be individuals, vendors, suppliers, consultants, brokers, anyone that provides some form of service to your architecture firm. Now, I think it's important for us to know what is the penalty. Now, the penalty is actually 10 times the bribery sum or 1 million ringgit, whichever is higher. Okay, so minimum fine, you're looking at 1 million. It can be worse if the bribery sum was a huge amount, and 10 times that huge amount, up to 10 times, I mean, it's a huge amount, means it can be higher than 1 million. Now, it also includes imprisonment up to 20 years or both. Okay. Now, this penalty can apply to the commercial organization, the partnership, the architecture firm. Later, I'll mention the minute the architecture firm is held to be liable under 17A, there is an automatic deeming provision that the directors, partners, and management are personally liable. Now, again, SPRM will pick and choose who was in charge of this portfolio, who did not regulate that particular employee or that business partner. Okay, even though technically they can go after anyone that's in management, directors, partners as well. They will likely pick and choose based on the facts of the case. So bear in mind, the next section talks about personal liability. So this is a deeming provision where if the company is held to be liable or the partnership is held to be liable under 17A, then certain individuals are deemed liable. So I've highlighted it in red here. You can see where an offense is committed by the architecture firm, then the director, controller, officer, partner, or anyone who's concerned with the management of the affairs of the architecture firm is deemed. That means you're automatically deemed liable unless you prove your innocence. So you are deemed to have committed that offense, that same offense. Now the logic behind this is you should have supervised what's going on in your architecture firm. So you are actually deemed liable until you prove otherwise. Okay, so if the architecture firm is liable, the directing mind and will behind the architecture firm, meaning the bosses, are deemed liable unless, now you have to prove two things as your defense. First thing, that offense done by the architecture firm was done without your consent or connivance. Consent, easy to prove. I never told him to do it. I never consented. But connivance is wider. You must not have turned a blind eye. Meaning, you know, sometimes you tell your subordinates, your employees, your agents, your brokers, hey, just get the job done. You do what you need to do. Don't tell me what you did. That is connivance. That is turning a blind eye. That is condoning a certain practice in the industry, knowing it's being done and just pretending you don't know. That is connivance. So you are liable. So it's very wide. If you knew this practice is going on, you must expressly put a stop to it and document it by having a memo or having a policy and informing all your subordinates, all your service providers not to do it. And then checking on them, monitoring them to make sure they don't do it. Then you have a defense. Now, so condoning practices, turning a blind eye will also get you in trouble because you then don't have a defense. So again, they will, SPRM, MACC will look at the circumstances of the case. Now, if you can successfully say the architecture firm committed the offense without your consent or connivance, you clearly were innocent, you did not know, it doesn't stop there. And you must exercise, you must have had exercise due diligence to prevent the commission, okay, then you ought to have taken into account the nature, your function, your capacity and circumstances. So again, there is this positive element to it where you must have put in place SOPs for your architecture firm. You must have come up with policies. You must have come up with some form of monitoring mechanism, enforcement, like to check, hey, what are your guys doing now on the ground? Okay, are they doing all these practices or have they changed the way? So there must be a positive element of exercising due diligence. So you must have done policies and educated your staff and your service providers. You must have done something positive. All right, so this is the dangerous part. Once the architecture firm is liable, automatically all the bosses, all management are liable. So even if you are not the director or partner, you are just head of department or you are the manager, senior manager, you are personally liable. How does SPRM pick and choose? They will see, okay, where did this offense occur? So let's say it occurred by the procurement department. They will see, okay, who is the head of procurement? Hey, who is the director on the board in charge of procurement? They will go after those guys because those were under your watch and you did not do anything. Now let's take some questions before I move on.
Yeah, the nature of our work, we deal with a lot of people, and the people who, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The nature of our work will deal with a lot of people outside of our organization, and the one that is going to complete the work for us are the contractors. Now, the contractors and the subcontractors, we know that they will have to get things done
Hanky panky.
whatever way necessary, because we're dealing with, you know, people who come to inspect from the utility companies and all that, you know, how to chase to make the project complete on time, so there's no unnecessary delay. So, I mean, how far reaching does this law apply to us? Because we're dealing with partners, we're agents of the contract, but they have their way of doing things that we don't. The project can't be completed because, frankly, it is quite deep. Quite.
I know it's an inherent problem in the industry. Way of doing business. Architects are not the only one caught by this problem. You will have engineers, you will have other people in different industries, even telco companies. A lot of companies that because of the way business is done, you're dealing with government agencies, you're dealing with approving bodies. So I understand this, the issue. Now, if you ask me, is there exposure under 17A? Clearly there is. Now, but we have to look at the risks. We have to look at practical considerations. Now, best case scenario, the practices in the industry change over time. There's more whistleblowing. SPRM goes and investigates these government bodies that are asking and causing all these issues. Now, it's so deep-rooted that it's going to take time. But from your perspective, when you are dealing with contractors, subcontractors, and you know they have to get approvals, they need to expedite things. So sometimes you know they are doing certain things that should not be done. Okay, grease payments, facilitation payments, do it copy, things to get to expedite approvals. Now, from your perspective, as the architect and the architecture firm, you need to have clear policies, and you need to tell the contractors and subcontractors, in light of 17A, we cannot be doing business the way we used to. I will be exposed. My company, my partnership, my architecture firm will be exposed. Stop doing it. You need to tell this. You need to tell them this. Because if you don't even have a defense. Okay? I'm not going to comment on what these contractors and subcontractors eventually do. I am telling you, as the architecture firm, you must be very clear and educate them and have clear policies, or rather clear instructions to them to stop doing it under 17A. And you document it. So when SPRM comes to investigate, you must, without a doubt, with a clear conscience, tell them, guys, we attended this training. We were made aware of 17A. I've got the slides. And we actually told all our contractors, we sent out a memo, we sent out an email, we came out with an ABC policy, an anti-bribery corruption policy. We even came out with a whistleblower policy for as an independent channel of reporting. We've done all of this because we knew that we don't want to be implicated. Now, we have done all of this. So as long as you're able to say and tell SPRM, you've got all of these things in place, that's your defense. Okay. Is it difficult? Is it difficult? I will tell you definitely, because it's so inherent in the system.
Right.
You never know your bad luck. As parent comes to investigate your architecture firm, you won't have a defense unless you have taken all these steps. Okay. Believe me, a lot of industries have this problem. Okay. I hope I answered the question, Almas.
Yeah, seems hopeless.
But you know, as an architect, architecture firm, you do what you need to do. You put all these policies, memo, emails, about to. We'll tell you all. Those interested, we don't mind assisting PAM or even assisting architects. Those attending, you all can reach out to us. We will actually help you all with the documentation and help you all so that you have a strong defense. Okay. Now, what your subcontractors and what they all do is separate issue lah. At least you have something in place to have a defense.
Yes.
You don't do anything. You never know when one day MACC SPN comes to investigate. You have no defense, and it's 20 years imprisonment, 1 million fine minimum. So, bungkus lah, close shop.
Yep.
Then we have to come and visit you all in prison lah. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So I just want to explain what is this offense. So now we know the offense. We know there are two sections. Architecture firm can get into trouble for the actions of your employees or even service providers. Then deem personal liability to directors, partners, and even employees, those who are in charge of the management lah. That means higher employees. Now, the defense is having in place adequate procedures. So you must have in place adequate procedures, and the government has already come out with guidelines on what adequate procedures are. So this was issued by the PM's department, the de facto law minister under the previous government, under Tun Mahathir's government. So before that, just bear in mind, the term service provider, persons who perform services, is very wide. So if you look at the slides, it even covers companies and individuals. So agent, vendor, service provider, consultant, local or foreign. Even subsidiary companies, joint venture companies that provide services, and there is a link that they did something for the advantage of the architecture firm, then yes, their actions will implicate your architecture firm. Now, whether you actually had a formal engagement with the service provider is not relevant, because sometimes when you hire consultants or agents to commit the bribe, there's never an agreement. It's all verbal. So how do they, SPRM, when they investigate, how do they actually connect the dots, the link? They will look at the nature of the circumstances and the relationship. Okay, so a hood, a wink, a nod could be your engagement with them. The fact by your conduct, they will say that this individual agent, broker, consultant was acting for you to secure the contract. So there's no need for a appointment letter to the service provider. Now, high-risk departments, if you're looking at companies, you're looking at high-risk departments or rather certain portfolios in your architecture firm, you need to now think of coming up with certain SOPs to put in some control measures to safeguard your architecture firm. So what are the methods used to keep bribery payments off the books? You know this, so you have to list them out and think how to do things better. When it comes to awarding contracts, purchasing, procurement processes, getting approvals. So now we've got all this do-it copy, facilitation payments, lease payment. offset arrangements. All this you have to look into. Departments or divisions that are highly vulnerable to kickbacks, bribery. Now, even political donations, contributions, you have to relook and be careful. Is it given with an ulterior motive to get approvals? Okay. Community social investments, charities also. Let's say you go to see some government official in the ministry or municipal council, and you say, look, I want to get this approval. What's the status of my approval? Then the boss calls you to his room and says, hey, your approval actually is it's on my table. I just not sign, baru not sign. It's all there. I just need to sign it. But my wife, she does a very good job, but she runs a charity. Problem is now with this pandemic, susah nak dapat donations. Now she's doing a good job. She's actually running a proper charity. Trying to get some donations. Anyway, your letter is on my table. I'm going to sign it soon. I'll get down to it. I hope you can support my wife's charity. I give you the details. Now, Almas, what do you think in that scenario? If you were to donate to the charity, macam mana?
I think that is considered what's the word? It's a bribe.
Yes, it is.
It's a bribe, yeah.
It is because he's kind of dropping big hints saying, hey, I will sign your letter if you donate money to my wife's charity. Is it for charity? Yes. Is the wife doing good job? Yes. But the link is, if you donate only, he's going to approve it. So I changed the facts a bit. Let's say your organization, you all donate to charities every year. You pick one charity, and you have an independent committee that does evaluation, background checks, and based on merit, you donate same amount every year, and you have been doing it for 20 years. And so happened, this was to this particular charity. Now, based on the facts, your history, track record, no problem. You got a committee based on merits, you got track record, scenario is very different. So even later they investigate the charity, no problem. They'll check how you do it, no issue. But so that it really, so when sometimes people ask us, hey, can donate charity ta? Cannot donate, can donate. It's not such a simple question. It's based on the facts. You tell me the circumstances, I'll give you the answer. I cannot tell you one size fits all and one, it really depends on the facts. And when SPRM comes to investigate, they will look at the circumstances. They will look at the facts and then decide whether they want to charge you. Okay. Whether you want to receive corporate gifts, hospitality, entertainment, it depends on the circumstances and the quantum. So you must again come up with a policy. So you can put all of this in your no gift policy, even though it's called no gift policy, actually it's no gift with exceptions. And then have a gift register. Have a ABC policy, anti-bribery corruption policy. Have a whistleblowing policy. So people in your architecture firm, third parties, if they suspect bribery or corruption, they can at least report independently. There's a reporting channel. So these are things you need to do as your defense. Now, so the defense really is under the guidelines on adequate procedures, which was introduced. Now, it's easy to remember because it is based on 5 principles following the acronym TRUST, TRUST. So it's based on 5 principles. Now, the first principle is top level commitment. You need the buy-in from the bosses, the owners of the architecture firm, from the board. Risk assessment, you must go and do a risk assessment to find out where are the gaps. So your gap analysis, corruption risk assessment. Look at high risk departments or divisions or the way you do business. Now, once you identify the risk, corruption risk, You undertake control measures, the third element. You put in control measures, check and balance. Hey, better get 2 signatories. Oh, bidding process, we must always get a few quotes. Hey, the signing or approving cannot be one person. We should have a check and balance. Okay. Next, once you're putting these control measures, you need to have systematic review, monitoring, and enforcement. This is an ongoing thing. You want to make sure the control measures you put in place are working over the passage of time, over a period of time. So you have reviews, monitoring, enforcement. Now you want to do background checks. Monitoring enforcement involves when you hire a new broker, hire a new agent, a consultant, service provider, you must do background checks. Okay. And then you must blacklist them if you find out they've committed bribery and corruption. And then finally, training communication, you must educate all your employees. And sadly, you have to educate all your service providers. Okay, anyone that can get you in trouble, you must send them email, memo, or get them to sign integrity pledge, undertaking. Contractually, you want to cover that. So training communication. Today, what those attending, y'all are lucky. This is part of your defense. You can say, I attended training. I'm aware of, but you see, these 5 principles, you have to implement all 5. Not one of the 5 or 2 of the 5, all 5. So if you look at this chart I've prepared, you essentially need to do all these 5 things. Then you will have a very strong defense. Now, we at KDJ Law, we are more than happy to sit down with you and have a free consultation and hold your hand, tell you what you need to do. I was actually thinking, Almas, whether we want to do one for PAM and then you all roll it out. That's possible as well. So at least you are doing a additional service.
Yeah.
We actually come up with the policies and the documentation. Or we do a special package and maybe get whoever signs up through PAM. I mean, we just do a package for you. So what's important is you must do something. You must implement these 5 principles. Okay. Now, I think there are about 10 of you all that has participated. Now, if you drop me an email, later I'll give you my email. Then I'll share some tips with you all separately. Now, looking at potential liability, we're almost done. We've got a few more minutes. Potential liability by architects, SPRM has identified construction industry. Again, no brainer lah. High industry that may be subjected to high levels of corruption. That's how the industry is. We all know. Now, the higher the value of the contract and all that, then the higher the risk is. So as the construction industry evolves, not only architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, project managers, all the various governance bodies also, the key players, they must be aware of this new Section 17A type of corporate liability exposure. Okay, so bribery, corruption does occur. You've got payments to various government bodies to obtain favors, procure favorable outcomes, gifts to key players, bonus, discounts, rebates, commissions that are under the table, not transparent, not approved. So what we need to do is we must educate our employees and also our service providers. We must come up with SOPs, policies dealing with anti-bribery and corruption. Come up with your own no-gift policies, have a gift register where you do allow gifts, register, let us know. So then you can show SPRM all of this. Now, so you must regularly look, monitor, and check what your subordinates are doing, what your service providers are doing. So we are happy to assist with the policies, procedures, SOPs. So these are the things you need to do to protect your architecture. answer for. Now we'll take some Q&A. We'll got a few minutes left. We'll do some questions, take some questions. So those who want that material, and yeah, feel free to drop me an email. I'm happy to send you some reading material and some tips. Yes, Lynn. Or is it
Jerry, there's one question here.
Hmm.
Okay, it's from the anonymous attendees. It says, what if my firm receive a hamper? It's not a bribe, and someone report to MACC. What is my firm liability?
Okay. Wow, you already assume it's not a bribe. I receive a hamper is not a bribe. How do you know it's not a bribe? So we must look at what's in the hamper. So I actually answered this question earlier. Maybe you were not around. So some companies are very strict. They have no gift policy, meaning they will not accept hampers. They will either donate it to a charity or depending on what the value of the hamper and the circumstances. Let's say it was given for Chinese New Year or Chap Gourmet yesterday. They will distribute it among their employees. Again, what was the hamper given for and what was the value of the hamper is relevant. Just now I gave you a different scenario where if it's sent to the home, it's say an expensive Rolex watch, then of course the element of it being a corrupt reputation is much higher. Now, if someone complains to SPRM, to answer your question, you need to have a gift register, meaning, unfortunately, whenever hampers are given to the company, you can either choose to be very strict and say, no, we will not accept, we'll donate it to charity, or you must make sure it is not taken by any particular boss. You know, sometimes bosses say, hey, thank you very much. I'm taking this hamper to share with my spouse and family members. My kids will be very happy they saw some nice chocolates there. You may want to say, hey, I have no choice. I will distribute it. I leave it in the pantry, distribute it to all the staff. That's one step better. But isn't there influence the minute you accept hampers? Even if you share it? Yes. So again, goes to the value of the hamper and whether it was that given, what's the context. Now, having said all of that, you should have a gift register and record the hamper so we know came from whom, when, what was the occasion. When SPRM calls you for questioning, you will be equipped. You will have the gift register, you will have the circumstances. Now, if you don't have the gift register, you're not going to remember. You won't even know what were the items. You won't even know what was the value of the hamper. So do have the gift register. And then if they do question you, you should be able to tell them, look, it was given because of Chinese New Year. Okay. So if circumstances are different, then you may be in trouble. But I don't think you receiving a hamper for Chinese New Year is going to be an issue per se. Again, depending on the value of the hamper and the circumstances. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Jerry. We've had several situations where the developer themselves ask us to donate to their events, a launching of a project which got nothing to do with us, a launching of our own project when the money should be coming from the marketing department, and to buy tables at their charity dinner so that this would be seen as their charity. How does that fall within this act?
So this is even more difficult. This is a gray area. Now, if you were involved in the project in that sense, and they just want all of y'all to support, that is one consideration. Here, you're not even involved in that project. They are basically just asking for donations. Now, the key question is this. Is it a situation of you scratch my back, I scratch your back? You have to support me, then I will continue to support you. Your architecture firm will continue to be on our panel, And when we have new projects, we will consider you. So now, in what context are they saying all of this? So SPRM will come in and they investigate. They will see, okay, is this a form of bribery and corruption so that you will continue to get work from them, which is the link to gain an advantage or benefit? Okay, what was the amount of the donation? Did they ask 100 architecture firms to give the donation? Or were there only 7 architecture firms on the panel and they asked? Was the donation a huge amount? So it's very subjective. They will look at all these questions and circumstances. Now, if you ask me, the best is don't do it anymore. Tell under 17A, there could be exposure to my architecture firm. Okay, in fact, Mr. Developer, you should not be asking it yourself. You are going to get in trouble. Okay, someone is going to call SPRM and say, this developer has this practice of doing tolong siasat. So the siasat, they will go and they investigate. You can easily do anonymous complaint to SPRM because it's an issue of giving and receiving. The problem now is the only way the industry is going to change is either that we have excellent enforcement or people change their the way of doing things. So a lot of it has to do with having a culture of integrity, especially when it's deep rooted in the industry and practices. It's an uphill task. Okay, so that's a bit of a gray area, but potential liability, yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap it up?
Jerry, I think this is just one short questions. I think it's just continuing from the previous questions that you was asked. Is the MACC will come to do investigation first or to charge our firm straight away? This has something to do with the earlier one when they receive a hamper.
No, they will never charge you straight away. They will investigate dulu. They will interview and get statements. They will record statements. It's a long process. They must get their facts. So they will write in, they will come and ask you to come and give a statement. They will investigate. In cases where they feel records may be destroyed, and SPRM, MACC has the power of the police, similar powers. They'll raid your architecture firm. They will seize your computers, your files, your records as part of the investigation. They cannot charge you immediately because they need to investigate. And this investigation will take months. You need to get in touch with us, with your lawyers, at the first point before, the minute you get a letter, the minute they raid you, we will tell you what to do and what not to do. And we will guide you. So they cannot just charge you, they will investigate.
I have one question. You mentioned just now about being an agent. I didn't quite get the whole thing. But in a situation where the consultant or the architect secured work through an agent who was appointed by the developer, and we pay the agent for like a commission, is that considered a bribe?
So the link is there, even though the agent was recommended by the developer, for example, or the consultant. I mean, the fact you're using an agent and you are paying them, that's fine, nothing wrong. The link is if the agent committed the bribery to secure the approval, which is to the architecture firm's benefit, directly or indirectly, and it is also to the benefit of the project, the developer, directly or indirectly. All of you have potential liability because we can easily link that the agent gave the bribe, okay, and there are a number of people benefiting. And sometimes your payment includes an additional facilitation payment or duit kopi, which was even worse. That means you gave the money that was used as the bribe. Okay, or the money could have come from the developer. So again, look at the circumstances, but you are right. Service providers, actions of service providers who are the consultant, brokers, agents, doing something for the benefit of the architecture firm will be the link where 17A will apply. So it doesn't need to be your own employees. It can be, bribe can be given through an agent, but there must be a benefit to you, directly and indirectly. If there is no benefit, then they cannot link you under 17A. That agent will be personally liable under section 16 to 23.
Oh, no, this is not the architect's agent. This is the developer's agent.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Oh.
Is there a benefit to your architecture firm? Because someone has to get the approval. You need the approval for the job. And so he is doing a service for you as well, you know, even though it's recommended by the developer. Right?
Mm.
Of course, if the facts are a bit different, then the circumstances will be different. The outcome will be different.
Yeah.
If there's no link to the architecture firm, then you don't have to worry. I'm just saying if there's a link, then there's a concern.
Mm. It's a quite a complex situation, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we will analyze each situation and tell you whether it's there's exposure, risk exposure.
Right. Mm. Okay.
Okay, we can still take another one or two questions.
But there's no questions from the Q&A box. Not sure.
You can unmute and ask questions. Now, so my email is there. You can just snap a shot if you all need the email. I'll stop sharing the slides. Let me just copy this. Okay, so now I can see some of the participants. So we've got Saiful, Lillian, Lim, Ong. Any questions from any of you? Or you can drop me an email as well. Any questions? Just to tell you about this new section.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Do you regularly do training?
Yes, yes. On sometimes invited to do training, but always on some legal topic, some law topic. So we are happy to support PAM, and if you find any relevant topic. So recently we did on competition law, we've done on personal data protection. So whenever there's a change in law, the other one is the changes to some employment legislation. They've amended the Industrial Relation Act as well. That would also,
Right.
yeah. So whatever topic that you all feel is relevant to architects, we'll be happy to do a session for you all.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been nice. We you know, later in the year, hopefully we can do face-to-face sessions. Then it'll be more interactive. Unfortunately, now webinars not as interactive as I would have liked.
Yeah, we were hoping that it would be, but it just prolonged. And because
this year, I think the next couple of months, you're looking at maybe third quarter, fourth quarter, when the vaccine is,
yeah,
the population has it. So I suppose you all have the CPD courses. How often? Is it once a year? or more often?
No, we have CPD like almost every Saturday. That was the norm before MCO, and it was face to face. People come to PAM and get the CPD points. We need that for lembaga registration.
Yeah.
But last year we started, PAM started the CPD Unlimited. So for those who needed to catch up on their points,
Catch up on the
they
points.
come to PAM and they can pick any talk they want to attend. So that's why there were only about 10 people today, because there's so many others, as you have seen from the schedule, so many going at the same time. But
it's only for the whole of today, or you have tomorrow as well? Or
just today. Just today.
How many topics are there for the whole of today?
Wow. Mimi, how many are there?
I think it's about 48 topics, because for one session there were about 8, about 8 sessions. So 8 plus, sorry, it's not 48, I think.
So you've got simultaneous sessions throughout the whole day lah.
Yes, correct. Like
no
from
worries.
9 to 11, 9 to 30, we have 8 session.
Yeah. I mean, I would prefer a live session. So once situation improves, maybe we can look at conducting another topic for y'all, or we can even redo this topic again later on.
Yes, I think our profession needs to be aware of the implications, because it can be very subtle.
Yes.
But deep rooted
problem. Yeah. No worries, Almas. What we can do is maybe have 1 hour, 1.5 hours face-to-face session later part of the year, once things are settled.
Yeah.
And then just invite whoever members, and then we can make it more interactive and address some various situations.
Yeah. Yes.
That can also be used. You take down the attendance and all that. Attendance as a form of defense as well. And then we'll tell them what to do to implement. So if any of you are interested in coming out the policies, procedures, SOPs and all that, we are happy to assist.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you can do it through PAM. I'm not sure, Almas, whether your president would be keen to look at assisting members with something.
How should we address that? To come up with for you to draft
policies for them, SOPs, policies, certain provisions that they should put into their contracts when they engage agents, brokers, certain provisions even dealing with your own employees, maybe in their handbooks or even employment contracts, dealing with anti-bribery and corruption.
Right.
We can have a discussion. I'll be happy to have a discussion with you and maybe your board members on rolling out something.
Council members. Yeah, I'll bring it up.
Because we also actually do a lot of advice for developers, joint venture companies, real estate transactions, financing. If anyone is keen to look at those areas as well.
Yeah.
I think this is a hot topic currently.
Yeah, yeah. We were not sure how it affected practitioners.
Yeah.
We were actually thinking that to give a discount would account to bribery, because we have our scale of minimum fees, which is Power Architect's rules. But you mentioned that as long as it's official and not under the counter, so it's not considered.
All right. That is a violation of your scale fees, which is a difference. It's not a bribery per se under the, as far as SPRM is concerned, but you are infringing your scale fees.
Yeah.
Which is an offense in a different context.
Yes.
So I hope no one heard me saying, oh, you can do it. I didn't say that. You can't do it, but is it bribery? No, because it's recorded, it's transparent. Now, the problem is sometimes it's not transparent and it's not recorded because you have to hide it.
Yeah.
You might have other issues.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, we're happy to engage, and maybe we can have a discussion, Almas, separately with your board or with your president on rolling out something for members.
Okay, will do.
Maybe we can do that as
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, thank you everyone, and hope you have learned something new. You know the scope of 17A, how it impacts your practitioners and architecture firms.
Right. Thank you very much, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
all.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thanks. Feel free to drop an email if you have any questions later. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you all. I will end the session now, yeah?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Amy.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.